3 million years ago, the African plains came alive with sound, but safety was never on the ground. Australopithecus, small and curious, looked to the trees for refuge from the world below. They were not yet human, but they stood between two worlds, the forest canopy and the open plain. In the night, predators ruled. On the ground, fear never slept. The trees offered safety, comfort, and life, a fortress of leaves and light. Each dawn began with a slow climb down, careful and quiet. The air was filled with danger. Leopards, snakes, and ancient eagles circling above. Their long arms were a bridge to survival, built to grasp, swing, and climb again in an instant. On the ground, fruit, roots, and insects offered food, but never safety. Each meal was a race against time. Their bodies told the story of adaptation. Strong hands, curved fingers, perfect for holding life itself. From their high perch, they watched the grasslands transform beneath them. Storms came fast. The trees swayed but never broke. In the branches, families huddled close, warmth shared in the language of touch. Below, death waited, silent and patient. Night after night, the trees became home, a sky-high village above the chaos. But survival demanded balance. They had to risk the ground to live. Every step below was a gamble, yet curiosity drove them forward. This was life between fear and discovery, a dance played for millions of years. And through that daily struggle, they shaped the path of all who came after. Their world was a mosaic, half forest, half open savanna. Here, only those who adapted could survive the shifting land. Australopithecus learned to read the ground, to sense change before it struck. When danger came, the trees stood waiting, the only promise of safety. Each branch told a story, of instinct, of memory, of survival. Insects filled the air, a constant hum, a feast for small hands. They gathered fruit by feel and sound, trusting the rhythm of nature. Some days, storms carried food closer, wind-blown gifts from higher branches. Other days, hunger drove them lower, closer to the unseen. A rustle in the grass could end everything. They relied on eyes and ears, sharp, alert, always searching. Their sense of balance was life itself. Tree nests became their sanctuary, a place of rest and renewal. They built high, above danger, above the noise. Every evening, the same ritual: climb, settle, listen, wait. At night, the forest sang, the calls of 100 unseen lives. They slept close, warmth shared in still air. Above the ground, they were safe for now. Each dawn repeated the same quiet courage. Life in the trees was not escape, it was adaptation. Each tree became its own world, shelter, ladder, and larder in one. Branches shaped their muscles, their bones, their balance. Gravity was an old enemy. One mistake could end a lineage. But experience carved wisdom, which branch to trust, which to avoid. Mothers carried young close, each heartbeat a promise of survival. They groomed, comforted, and warned, a quiet language before words. Fear bonded them, touch taught them. Their days were written in patterns of light, from dawn's chill to sunset's heat. They ate the forest's gifts, figs, roots, termites, eggs. Every bite was knowledge of what heals, what harms. When fruits were gone, they turned to tools simple but revolutionary. A stick became an extension of the hand, the first whisper of technology. Though crude, it was enough to bridge instinct and invention. Change was happening, unseen, but unstoppable. The forests were thinning. The plains were spreading. Each drought tested what they could endure. Rain meant life, but the rains came late. They waited in silence, hearts echoing the rhythm of thunder. In every storm, they remembered the trees were their shield, the canopy, their fortress, their cradle, their sky. But even the trees could not stand forever.
Homo habilis, a hominin species that lived from approximately 2.8 to 1.5 million years ago.
1 million years ago, the African plains hummed with life and the constant threat of death. For the first time, a creature walked the earth whose mind was large enough to grasp the finality of existence. This was Homo erectus, the upright wanderer. They mastered fire and refined tools, but their greatest leap was internal. A growing capacity for profound emotion, including grief. Where earlier ancestors abandoned their dead to the scavengers, Homo erectus showed subtle, remarkable signs of caring for those they had lost. Their actions hint at the birth of ritual. These moments, stripped of language and ceremony, show the earliest glimpses of what it means to be truly human, a deep, lasting connection to the departed. For Homo erectus, life was entirely communal. Survival depended on the group's knowledge, skills, and protection. A death was a devastating blow to the collective. The deceased wasn't just a loss of muscle. It was a loss of crucial memory, knowledge of medicinal plants, the best hunting routes, or how to flake a specific tool. The first challenge was practical: how to deal with the corpse. Leaving it exposed meant attracting dangerous predators directly into their camp. One of the earliest solutions was concealment. The group would often move the body, hiding it in a cave, a deep fissure, or under heavy piles of stone and brush. This act, initially pragmatic, soon took on a deeper meaning. It was an act of protection, shielding the loved one from the final, brutal indignity of being consumed. The cave, their primary shelter, became a crucial site. Evidence suggests that in some sites, bodies were placed in recesses or side chambers, a form of early segregation. This was not a formal burial, but a respectful placement. They kept the remains safe, perhaps hoping to ward off the spirit or simply to maintain the body's integrity. In prolonged, subtle ways. Studies suggest emotional distress may have affected their foraging efficiency and communication for days. They likely understood death through their senses. The scent of a rotting carcass, the stillness of the body. These were the harsh realities that informed their response. Homo erectus carried their dead, sometimes over considerable distances. The energy expenditure speaks volumes about the value placed on the individual. This act cemented their social structure. It demonstrated to the group that every member, even the weakest, would be protected and honored to the very end. The earliest archaeological hints of symbolic acts are found here. Tools like a favorite hand axe might have been left near the resting place. This was not an offering, as we define it. It was simply leaving what belonged to the individual near them, a powerful personal connection to a cherished object. Children were treated with special care. The emotional trauma of losing a young one likely elicited the strongest protective responses from the group. In rare cases, they may have returned to the resting place. This return established a physical location tied to memory, a proto-cemetery. These silent acts of visitation reinforced the social bond and transferred the deceased's value from the living individual to the collective memory. The danger of cannibalism, though present in some early hominin groups, was likely overcome by this developing sense of familial and social respect. The growth of the skull and the complexity of the Homo erectus brain allowed them to form abstract thoughts. What happens after death? We can speculate that fear of the unknown drove their actions. Protecting the body might have been an attempt to soothe an anxiety they couldn't articulate. The use of fire provided light and safety, but it also became a focal point for gathering and storytelling, the perfect setting for remembering the dead. While not verbal, their complex calls and gestures could communicate loss. The rhythm of their daily life would have slowed in mourning. The growth of the skull and the complexity of the Homo erectus brain allowed them to form abstract thoughts. What happens after death? We can speculate that fear of the unknown drove their actions. Protecting the body might have been an attempt to soothe an anxiety they couldn't articulate. The use of fire provided light and safety, but it also became a focal point for gathering and storytelling, the perfect setting for remembering the dead. While not verbal, their complex calls and gestures could communicate loss. The rhythm of their daily life would have slowed in mourning. The physical stress of caring for the elderly and injured also reinforced this compassion. Many Homo erectus fossils show evidence of recovery from serious, debilitating injuries. Survival required this care. An injured member, if kept alive, could later pass on knowledge that saved the lives of the entire group. This ethical framework, born from necessity and cemented by compassion, was a revolutionary evolutionary step, the first moral compass. The bodies of their deceased acted as natural lessons. Lessons on the frailty of life and the immense danger of the world they navigated. The presence of the death site gave them a fixed location to return to in their memory, anchoring the deceased in the landscape. They likely placed stones over the grave to protect against erosion and animal disturbance, creating the first intentional markers of respect. Every time they passed that spot, the stone marker would prompt a silent moment of reflection, a quiet acknowledgement of the group's history. These rudimentary traditions were not formalized religion. They were the raw, vital expressions of a species. The care for the dead with its own mortality, the deep care for the living. It was the two sides of the same evolutionary coin. Compassion ensures the survival of the group. This behavior marked a profound divergence from the animal world, initiating a new evolutionary pressure toward emotional and social intelligence. Even after the body was safely concealed, the stories, the memory of the dead, continued to live in the group's actions and silent traditions. This practice, refined over hundreds of thousands of years, would gradually transform into the elaborate burial rites of later human species. The knowledge of death fueled their drive to master life, to build better shelters, hunt more efficiently, and use fire to ward off the darkness. These ancient memorials, whether simple stones or cave recesses, are the first cultural artifacts of grief, predating art and complex symbolic language. They were the invisible architecture of Homo erectus society, defining their ethical boundaries and distinguishing them from all other creatures on Earth. The act of honoring the dead was a commitment to the past, ensuring that the wisdom gained by a lifetime was not instantly erased by death. Their methods were simple, raw, and born of the earth, but they contained the seeds of every funeral, every mourning ritual, and every eulogy to come. In the terrifying world of 1,000,000 years ago, this quiet display of human kindness offered a flicker of light against the surrounding darkness. The greatest dignity they could afford their lost loved ones was simple: to keep them safe, unseen, and remembered. Their compassion was the beginning of our own. It tells us that empathy, not just aggression, was a key to our evolutionary success. The need to quickly conceal the dead led them to favor sites that already offered natural depressions or deep shadows, the first natural graves. This preference for specific, secure locations indicates a shared understanding, and perhaps the communal grieving may have also served a biological function, releasing stress and fear and allowing the group to refocus on survival. The greatest dignity they could afford their lost loved ones was simple: to keep them safe, unseen, and remembered. Their compassion was the beginning of our own. It tells us that empathy, not just aggression, was a key to our evolutionary success. The need to quickly conceal the dead led them to favor sites that already offered natural depressions or deep shadows, the first natural graves. This preference for specific, secure locations indicates a shared understanding and perhaps the beginning of sacred spaces within their territory. The act of communal grieving may have also served a biological function, releasing stress and fear and allowing the group to refocus on survival. The danger of bone destruction by scavengers like giant hyenas forced them to be thorough. Hyenas could easily expose and scatter remains. The weight of the stones wasn't just physical protection. It was a psychological reassurance that the resting place was secure against the terrors of the night. They may have used natural pigments, like rich ochre clay, to mark the body or the gravesite, symbolizing the continuity of life or vitality. While direct evidence is sparse, the intellectual capacity for symbolic color use was present, linking them directly to later, more complex rituals. The long lifespan of Homo erectus meant that multiple generations often lived together, deepening the significance of elder deaths and loss of collective wisdom.
2 million years ago, Africa began to change. Lush forests gave way to dust and sun. For Homo habilis, survival now meant one thing above all: water. Every sunrise began the same, a desperate search through a world of thirst. In this desert of survival, instincts ruled. Hesitation could mean death. Before the day ends, someone must find water, or not live to see another. The morning begins in silence. Even the wind refuses to move. The group numbers 6, 3 adults, 2 juveniles, and an aging female. They follow ancient instincts, reading the ground for footprints of antelope or elephant. If the beasts have survived, they'll lead to water. But predators know this too. Each movement, each scent carries risk. The young male carries a stone core, their most precious tool. With it, they cut meat, shape wood, and defend against danger. But no tool can conjure water. They traveled toward a distant line of green, the promise of a dried riverbed. The air smells faintly of moisture, or maybe memory. Suddenly, the elder stops, a sound beneath the earth. Using hands and broken stones, they dig. The soil grows darker, wetter, and then a trickle, brown but alive. They drink greedily, sharing turns in silence. Life returns, for now. But the desert is never generous for long. Soon the water will vanish, and the journey will begin again. Water dictates life, death, and every migration route. Homo habilis learned to remember, to follow the rains by season. But storms can deceive. Predators stalk the weak along these same dry trails. To survive, they take shifts through the night. Every sound in the darkness could be salvation or death. When dawn returns, they move again, weaker but alive. The oldest female lags, her steps falter. Compassion is a new instinct for this species. Together, they walk on. Days pass, the world offers no mercy. Even stone tools can't break thirst. But where others perish, they adapt. They use memory, and now cooperation. This is the beginning of shared survival. Their world is cruel, but their minds are changing. They fashion stone flakes to open marrow bones. They learn to follow vultures to hidden kills. They use sound to call each other across dunes. Each discovery buys them another sunrise. Invention becomes the weapon against extinction. One evening, thunder breaks the horizon. For the first time in weeks, rain. They dance, they drink, they live again. In these moments, evolution rewards endurance. But survival brings new questions. Where next? They begin to wander farther than any ancestor before. They map the land with footsteps and memory. They leave behind marks, stones placed in patterns. Curiosity drives them beyond hunger. They follow rivers that last a season longer. Children learn paths from the old. This is knowledge, the first inheritance. Soon, knowledge will shape the species itself. Brains expand, communication deepens. Survival becomes story. The world itself begins to change with them. New species watch the reins and the humans who master them. Every drop of water tells a story of persistence. Each survival carves a step toward tomorrow. And from thirst comes thought. The desert that once killed them became their greatest teacher. Through suffering, they learned foresight. Through thirst, they learned cooperation. And through memory, they began to think like humans. Generations later, their descendants would stand taller. They would craft sharper tools. They would hunt, plan, and speak. The deserts would not defeat them. They would define them. The struggle for water became the spark of intelligence. Necessity forged imagination, and imagination, the first flame of humanity. This is how humanity began, not in comfort, but in thirst. Next time, a new dawn, the rise of Homo erectus.
Wide cinematic shot, wind sweeping their footprints clean. Group digs roots, squeezes moisture, drinks tiny drops.
Footprints fossilizing, stones forming simple paths, faces illuminated by lightning.
Lightning flashes across a sky that gives no rain.
Time lapse, The sunrise higher, the puddle shrinks.
Water seeps upward, glistening between trembling hands.
Over 200,000 years ago, in the frozen tundra, our ancestors faced their most dangerous challenge yet. The woolly mammoth was massive, a beast of ice and bone that seemed unbeatable. But early humans, small and vulnerable, would turn this predator into their prize. Living in the Ice Age was brutal. Every day was a fight for survival. They hunted smaller prey, scavenged, and lived in tight-knit groups for protection. But they knew the real challenge came from the largest creatures of the tundra, the woolly mammoth. The mammoth's size made it the ultimate prize, but it would require strategy, skill, and teamwork to bring it down. They couldn't overpower the mammoth, but they could outsmart it. Every hunt required the group to work together, each person playing a vital role in the success of the mission. Speed was crucial. The mammoth's size gave it an advantage, but the humans knew the terrain better. Using the environment to their advantage, they would create diversions to split the herd and isolate a single mammoth. The plan was risky, but it was their best chance. The mammoth's weakness was its herd instinct. By creating a diversion, they managed to isolate one mammoth. Now it was time for the final move. The hunt was on. The group advanced quickly, moving together as one. Targeting the mammoth's legs, they launched their first attack. The mammoth's tusks were a powerful weapon, but it was slowed down by the pain. The group wasn't strong enough to overpower it directly, but by working in unison, they wore it down. Each blow, each distraction, was part of a larger plan to exhaust the great beast. Finally, after a grueling battle, the mammoth fell, but the fight was far from over. The mammoth's body was a prize beyond anything they'd ever hunted. It provided more than just food. Every part of the mammoth could be used: its meat, its bones, its tusks. The tusks would be carved into tools, weapons, and art, a testament to their ingenuity. The mammoth hunt was more than just a victory, it was a turning point in human evolution. For the first time, these early humans were able to confront nature's most dangerous creatures and win. Working as one, they took down a mammoth, and with it, they took their place in the food chain. Each hunt would be a lesson in cooperation, strategy, and adaptation. Tools became the cornerstone of their survival. As the mammoth hunt showed, the right tool made all the difference. The tusks provided not just food, but weapons, tools, and protection.
Over time, tools would evolve, becoming more refined, from simple bone fragments to advanced stone weapons. Tools made them more efficient hunters, and soon they were taking down even larger prey. But with success came challenges. The hunt was never easy, and the risk was always present. Yet their greatest strength lay in their ability to adapt and collaborate. The mammoth hunt wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle of wits, teamwork, and planning. It marked the beginning of a new chapter in human evolution, one defined by cooperation and invention. Tools weren't just used for hunting. They also paved the way for the rise of social structures. Social bonds were strengthened around the hunt. Cooperation became the key to their survival. Humans began to form tight-knit groups, relying on each other for protection and support. Their survival depended not just on the hunt, but on the strength of their social bonds. Over time, this cooperation evolved into the foundations of language and culture. Their bond as a group became unbreakable. The hunt was no longer just about food, it was about survival as a unit. They worked together to refine their tools, improving them with each generation. As the tools became more advanced, so did their hunting strategies. These strategies allowed them to hunt larger prey, expanding their food sources. Every hunt taught them something new, whether it was about themselves or the world they lived in. The mammoth hunt laid the foundation for culture. It brought the group closer together. It wasn't just about food, it was about the shared experience, the bond formed through struggle. From the hunt, they created rituals, stories, and beliefs that would be passed down for generations. The tools, the strategies, and the bonds forged in these moments would define early human culture. These shared experiences helped shape their identities and their place in the world. Their bonds were not just based on survival. They were founded on shared knowledge and mutual respect. The mammoth hunt was the first chapter in the long story of human culture and cooperation. It was the beginning of something much larger, the rise of humanity's dominance in the animal kingdom. And as the seasons changed, so did their understanding of the world. The mammoth hunt wasn't just about survival. It was about mastering the environment and growing stronger as a species. It marked the beginning of humanity's mastery over nature, a legacy that would be passed down through the ages. And through the mammoth hunt, we glimpse the beginnings of our shared history, a journey that continues to this day.
The fire is good.
We eat now.
2 million years ago, the Olduvai Gorge in modern-day Tanzania. The air is drier, the seasons more extreme. This is the world of a new kind of hominin, Homo habilis, the handyman. Their brains are larger, their faces flatter than their ancestors, and in their hands, they hold the future. But in a world without medicine, without shelter, without fire, this future is balanced on a knife's edge. For these toolmakers, their greatest invention was also their greatest new danger. But the story of this injury begins hours earlier, with the difficult and dangerous process of creation. Making a tool, even one this simple, is not easy. It requires foresight, precision, and an intimate understanding of stone. He tries again, adjusting his grip, striking at a steeper angle. This time, a large, sharp-edged flake shears off perfectly. He examines the new, razor-sharp edge of the chopper. He runs a finger near it, feeling its potential. He has created a portable butcher's knife. Now they must find something to use it on. For Homo habilis, that meant scavenging, a dangerous and competitive business. The landscape itself is a threat. A herd of calicotheres, strange horse-like creatures with clawed feet, graze nearby. They are herbivores, but highly aggressive. They are outmatched in size and strength by almost everything on the savanna. Their survival depends on staying unnoticed. Finally, the lead male spots it, a flock of vultures circling in the distance. It is the universal sign of a fresh kill. He cries out, dropping the tool. The cut is deep, the bleeding profuse. His troop, a family of 6, gathers around. There is no understanding of germs or infection. There is only the immediate reality of the wound. The smell of blood travels far on the savanna wind. It is an open invitation to those who are always watching, always waiting. They must abandon their prize. A bleeding, injured member makes them a target. The harsh reality is that a single moment of carelessness can cost them everything. The hyenas descend on the carcass, a cackling, chaotic mob. For the hominins, it is a devastating loss of precious calories. As they leave the carcass, the harsh reality of their social world becomes clear. The injured male is now a weak link. A younger, healthier male in the troop shows his impatience. He lets out an aggressive hoot, urging the group to move on. The lead male turns and glares at the impatient one, issuing a low growl. He will not tolerate dissent. The group's cohesion is paramount. That night, the situation worsens. The wound begins to throb, and a fever sets in. The next day, the infection is visibly worse. The skin around the cut is angry and red. As another harsh reality of their world descends from the sky, his weakened state becomes a critical danger to them all. The rain turns the dry ground to slick mud. A flash flood, a common danger in this landscape, begins to surge through the low-lying areas. The sick male struggles to climb. The mud offers no purchase, his fever stealing his strength. But the lead male and the older female refuse to leave him. They scramble down to his side. They make it to the high ground just in time. Below them, the world is a churning brown torrent.
They are marooned. The storm rages on, and with every passing hour, the infection in the young male's arm tightens its grip. This is the true fight for survival. Not just against predators, but against the world itself. A world of accidents, of microbes, and of relentless, unforgiving weather. After hours that feel like a lifetime, the storm passes and the floodwaters begin to recede. They are alive, but the ordeal has pushed the sick male to the very edge of death. Inside, they are shielded from the worst of the storm. but they are trapped, hungry, and nursing a dying companion. By the third day, the fever is at its peak.
The male is delirious, his arms swollen and dark with infection. This is often where the story would end. A simple cut, a raging infection, a quiet death. A harsh but common reality. But the larger brain of Homo habilis holds more than just the knowledge of how to make tools. It holds the capacity for memory, and perhaps for innovation. She leaves the cave, not to forage for food, but for something specific she has seen before. She remembers seeing sick animals eat the larvae found inside these logs. It is a desperate, intuitive gamble. These larvae are rich in protein and fluids. Not a medicine, but a concentrated burst of life-sustaining nutrition. It is not a miracle cure, but over the next few hours, the infusion of nutrients and fluids gives his body the fuel it needs for one last fight. Slowly, painstakingly, his fever begins to break. His immune system, given a fighting chance, begins to win the war. But survival is not a single event. Recovery is its own harsh journey. For days, he remains a burden. He takes on a new role. While the others forage, he stays behind, watching over the group's single juvenile. Another reality of this changing world asserts itself. Drought. The river they crossed is gone, leaving only cracked mud. Water is life. Without it, they will die in days. They must dig. The recovered male, though still weak, joins the effort. He uses his good arm to scoop away loose dirt, contributing in the only way he can. Finally, they break through to the water table. A small puddle of muddy water seeps into the hole. They have found life. Weeks later, his wound is a thick, ugly scar, a permanent reminder of his ordeal. But this time, there is no youthful arrogance. There is caution. There is memory. There is knowledge bought with pain. He has turned his personal trauma into a lesson that will strengthen the entire group. This is the dawn of culture. This brutal feedback loop, where innovation creates new dangers, and new dangers demand more innovation, was a critical engine of our evolution.
Deep in the heart of prehistoric Africa, a harsh sun beat down on an unforgiving landscape. For a small band of Australopithecus, every day was a battle for existence. Their skinny frames, honed by endless struggle, were a testament to a life lived on the edge. They moved with a primal awareness, searching for sustenance. Suddenly, the air grew still. A chilling silence fell, the kind that precedes ultimate danger. Their instincts screamed a warning. From the tall grasses emerged a beast of myth, a giant prehistoric lion, its eyes fixed, its intent clear. Panic flared. Terror seized them. This was no ordinary predator. It was a force of nature, an apex hunter from a forgotten age. Their only option was flight. The massive lion gave chase, a blur of muscle and fury. Every pounding footstep promised imminent demise. Survival hung by a thread. They spotted a dark opening, a cave mouth, a desperate gamble for safety, a momentary reprieve from the relentless pursuit. Tumbling inside, they gasped for breath, their hearts hammering. The roar of the lion outside faded, but the darkness within held its own dread. Suddenly, two piercing yellow eyes materialized from the inky blackness. A new, unseen terror, far worse than the one they'd escaped. A guttural snarl echoed through the cave. The hidden beast struck, a blur of fur and claws. It was an ambush. Panicked, they scrambled back, desperate to escape the new horror. The perceived safety of the cave became a deadly trap. Bursting into the blinding daylight, they found themselves once again on the vast, open savanna, from one danger to another. The unseen cat-like predator from the cave followed, its shadowy form now visible, a sleek, powerful leopard or similar dangerous feline. No rest, no reprieve. They ran, their skinny legs burning, seeking any sanctuary from the relentless pursuit across the sun-baked plains. A clustered spur of towering trees offered their only hope. With desperate strength, they began to climb, pulling themselves upward. High above the ground, they clung to thick branches, panting, watching as the predatory cat circled below, frustration etched on its face. Hours passed. The sun began its slow descent. Finally, with a disgruntled huff, the big cat gave up, melting back into the shadows. Cautiously, they descended. Survival demanded more than flight. It demanded a new approach, a way to stand their ground. They looked at their bare hands, then at the vast, dangerous world. They needed tools, weapons, something to turn the tide. Their journey for survival now became a quest for strength. They needed to arm themselves against the dangers lurking everywhere. Through rugged mountains and dry stream beds, they searched for raw materials, strong sticks, sharp stones, anything that could be transformed. They gathered their finds, bringing them back to a makeshift camp. The task was clear: forge protection from nature's fury. Days turned into a tireless effort of trial and error. Frustration mounted, but the memory of their fear fueled their resolve. Then, a breakthrough. After 2 long days, a crude but effective weapon emerged, a stick with a sharp stone firmly attached. It was rudimentary, but it was theirs. A symbol of growing intelligence, a promise of defense against the terrifying unknown. The next morning, fortified by a meager meal, they emerged from their temporary shelter, armed and resolute. No longer simply fleeing, they now moved with purpose, scanning the horizon not just for danger, but for opportunity. Their path led them towards the distant, shimmering expanse of the sea, a source of water and new potential sustenance. But their journey was interrupted. The giant lion, their tormentor from days past, reappeared. This time, they would not run. A primal roar from the leader. This was their moment. The hunters would become the hunted, a bold challenge for survival. A cry of pain and a dark stain spread across the savanna grass. The scent of fresh blood spurred the lion to attack with renewed savagery. Witnessing their comrade fall, the remaining hunters were filled with a grim, shared fury. There was no retreating now, only victory or death. With a focused, coordinated effort, they lunged forward, using their stone-tipped weapons to strike at the lion's vulnerable flanks and legs. The lion staggered, its massive form shaking. The primitive weapons, driven by unified intent, had pierced its thick hide. With one final powerful strike, the leader brought their club down upon the giant cat's head. The roar silenced into a heavy, earth-shaking thud. Silence. The battle was over. Against the odds, the small, frail ancestors had felled a beast many times their size. A triumph of mind over might. Exhausted but exhilarated, they turned immediately to the injured. The shared threat was gone, replaced by the urgency of care. This immense carcass was a prize beyond measure, a source of food and hides that could sustain their group for weeks. But first, they needed to move it. Using their ingenuity, they quickly gathered nearby logs and sturdy branches, beginning to construct a makeshift carrier, or litter. Lifting the heavy lion onto the carrier was a huge effort, requiring their full collective strength and coordination. They hoisted the burden onto their shoulders. The journey back to the cave, though long and arduous, was now a victory march. The return was slow, painful, and fraught with the risk of attracting scavengers, but they pressed on, determined to secure their prize. Reaching the relative safety of the cave entrance, they dragged the massive body inside, securing it from scavengers and the setting sun. The first order of business, processing the immense carcass. The tools they created for defense were now essential for butchers. By using sharp stone flakes, they began the task of meticulously cutting through the tough hide and muscle, preparing the meat. The abundance of food was overwhelming. This single hunt would ensure survival through a period of scarcity, a profound change in their reality. Next, fire. They collected dry wood and kindling, preparing to unlock the final crucial benefit of this colossal kill. Using friction techniques, likely a hand drill or fire plow, they worked tirelessly to bring forth the sacred spark of flame. Finally, the flame caught. A small, brilliant light in the darkness, quickly fed with kindling until it grew into a substantial fire. The meat was placed near the flames, the heat transforming its texture and rendering it safer and easier to digest. The cooking process began. The smell of roasting meat, a rich, savory aroma, filled the cave, a scent of prosperity and triumph over the wilderness. With the fire providing light and the huge carcass yielding meat, the cave became their true sanctuary, a place of safety and abundance. They feasted. The consumption of cooked meat was not just nourishment. It was a communal ritual, strengthening their bonds and their minds. Each bite represented the culmination of their struggle, the terror of the hunt, the ingenuity of the weapon, and the control of fire. This meal was the reward for their courage and coordination. They had proven that collective intelligence could overcome any physical disadvantage. The injured comrade, cared for and now nourished, rested by the fire, a symbol of their compassion and growing social complexity.
$3.2 million years ago, the continent of Africa. This is a world not yet our own, a world ruled by tooth and claw. Here, our most ancient ancestors took their first steps. They were not mighty hunters or kings of this savanna. They were small, vulnerable, and faced a daily struggle for survival. And for them, one act was more perilous than any other: raising a child in a world full of monsters. For this troop of 10, the day begins not on the ground, but high in the branches of an acacia tree. Here they found safety from the terrors of the night. But safety is temporary. Hunger drives them back to the ground, the most dangerous place to be. The descent is a moment of extreme vulnerability.
One by one, they move from the vertical world of the trees to the horizontal world of the plains. Once on the ground, social bonds are reaffirmed. These connections are the glue that holds their fragile society together. The search for food begins immediately. Their large brains, though small by our standards, demand constant fuel. They are not alone on this landscape. Other hominin troops are also searching for sustenance, and resources are scarce. A confrontation is inevitable. The lead male steps forward, his posture changing. This is a contest of intimidation, not a battle to the death. Our group is larger, more determined. The rival troop eventually relents, retreating to search for easier prospects elsewhere.
But new dangers quickly present themselves. A river cuts through the savanna, a barrier between them and richer foraging grounds. They know what lurks beneath the surface: giant prehistoric crocodiles, masters of the ambush. They must cross. They choose a shallow, wide point in the river, hoping to spot danger before it strikes. They make it across, hearts pounding. They have survived another of the savanna's hidden traps. But their relief is short-lived. It is the Dinofelis. It has shadowed them silently, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, when they are tired and their guard is down. The cat's strategy is simple: create chaos, isolate the weakest member, and strike. As the troop resumes foraging, the mother sets her infant down for a moment, allowing it to explore within arm's reach. This is the moment the hunter has been waiting for. The child is separated, even if only by a few feet. The lookout male on the rock suddenly freezes. His head snaps up, nostrils flaring. He lets out a sharp, barking alarm call. The troop explodes into action. The mother, in a flash of instinct, snatches her infant from the ground and pulls it tightly to her chest. The predator reveals itself. It is a Dinofelis, a specialist hunter of primates. It knows to target the slowest and weakest. A mother carrying her young is at a disadvantage. She is slower, less agile. A perfect target. But Australopithecus did not survive for millions of years by abandoning their own. What they have is courage and the power of the group. This is their only weapon.
The rest of the troop joins in from a distance. Their combined calls create a wall of sound, a cacophony of defiance. It is a desperate bluff, an attempt to appear larger and more formidable than they are, to make the predator hesitate. This crucial hesitation buys precious seconds. The mother uses this chance to create distance. The males grab fallen branches. They are not crafted weapons, merely extensions of their arms, but in this moment, they are lifelines. The standoff is a battle of wills. The predator's hunger against the hominin's instinct to protect their family. She scrambles upwards, never letting go of her child. With their family safe, the males begin a strategic retreat, facing the cat as they slowly back away towards the trees. Frustrated and outmaneuvered, the hunter gives up. The risk of injury is too high for a single meal. High in the branches, the troop regroups. The harrowing experience reinforces the bonds that keep them alive. The mother gently checks her infant for any injuries, her touch both a physical inspection and an act of profound comfort. They cannot stay here. The predator knows they are in this tree. They must find a safer place before nightfall. The attack has cost them precious foraging time. Now, hunger and fear drive them onward. But fortune can change quickly on the savanna.
The lead male spots something promising. This discovery is a lifeline. The fruit will replenish their energy and lift their spirits after the traumatic encounter. As they eat, they use found objects as simple tools, a hint of the ingenuity that will define their descendants. As dusk approaches, the search for a final sleeping place begins. They need a tree that is tall, strong, and difficult for predators to climb. The final ascent of the day. As they climb, the sounds of the savanna begin to change. The day animals fall silent, and the night hunters begin to call. They huddle together, a small family against a vast, indifferent wilderness. They have survived another day.
This constant life-or-death pressure to protect their uniquely helpless young was a powerful engine of change. It favored not the strongest individuals, but the most cooperative groups. Not the fastest, but the cleverest. The need to communicate threats, to coordinate a defense, and to maintain complex social bonds may have been the spark that ignited the growth of our brains.
Defending the next generation was not just an act of survival, it was an act of creation. It was on this anvil of parental danger that the first qualities of what we now call humanity were forged. For millions of years, Australopithecus survived using their wits and their unwavering commitment to each other. They held the line, ensuring that their children would live to see a new dawn and a new stage in the human story. But survival by escape and intimidation would not be enough forever. The world was changing, and our ancestors would have to change with it. The next step would require more than just finding tools. It would require making them. A new mind was dawning.
The skies of prehistoric Earth were not silent. They thundered with wings larger than any bird alive today. Before humans ever walked upright, the world was ruled from above by creatures of breathtaking power. These were not mere birds. They were aerial hunters the size of lions, reigning over ancient plains. Imagine looking up and seeing shadows that could blot out the sun. From the peaks of ancient mountains to vast, open savannas, these giants ruled the air. Their story begins millions of years ago, a tale of evolution, dominance, and survival. Eagles, as we know them, are only a whisper of their colossal ancestors. The fossil record reveals an ancient dynasty, the age of the giant raptors. With wingspans stretching beyond 20 feet, these predators hunted with deadly precision. Each beat of their wings was a testament to raw, evolutionary power. Across the world in ancient New Zealand, another monster took flight, Haast's eagle. Unlike Argentavis, this predator hunted in dense forests and mountain valleys. It was built for ambush, using its massive wings and muscular legs to launch devastating attacks. Its talons were as long as a tiger's claws, designed to pierce bone and muscle. Its prey? The giant flightless moa, towering over modern humans. The eagle would dive from above, striking with 1,000 pounds of crushing force. No creature in that land could challenge its aerial supremacy. Even early humans who reached those islands later would tell stories of sky monsters. Legends born from encounters with this very real apex predator. It was the true king of the prehistoric skies, unrivaled in strength and cunning. But dominance comes at a cost, and evolution always demands balance. As climates shifted and forests vanished, these massive hunters faced decline. Their enormous size required vast territories and endless food. When prey grew scarce, survival became a battle against starvation. The changing Earth favored smaller, more adaptable species. Giants like Argentavis and Haast's eagle slowly disappeared from the fossil record. Yet their legacy endured, written in the DNA of modern eagles and hawks. The spirit of those giants lives on every time a golden eagle dives from the cliffs. Their power, their precision, their fearlessness, all echoes of ancient greatness. Each feather today carries the story of that forgotten age of dominance. But let's return to the moment when their reign began, when raptors evolved from dinosaurs. From small, feathered predators, evolution gifted wings to killers. These early flyers learned to glide between trees, chasing insects and small prey. Over millions of years, size became their advantage, the skies their kingdom. As mammals spread below, the air belonged entirely to the raptors above. Each continent birthed its own dynasty, adapted to its own challenges. Some hunted in packs, others soared alone, silent and unseen. They became the perfect fusion of speed, intelligence, and lethality. Their evolution wasn't just about wings, but strategy, vision, and precision. Every movement in the air was a lesson written by nature's harshest teacher, survival. During the Miocene epoch, about 10 million years ago, the world was filled with giants. Herbivores grazed across endless plains, and predators stalked both land and air. Argentavis magnificens emerged during this golden age of aerial hunters. Its wings spanned nearly 7 meters, larger than a modern hang glider. It could ride thermal currents for hours, barely moving its wings. When it spotted carrion or small prey, it would descend with terrifying grace. Unlike falcons, it didn't rely on speed alone. It dominated through endurance. In the hierarchy of the skies, nothing could rival its sheer scale. Fossils found in Argentina tell of a creature that defied physics itself. To imagine it in flight is to glimpse nature at its most audacious.
The golden eagle, the harpy, the crowned eagle, all descendants of prehistoric glory. Every dive, every hunt is a reenactment of a dance millions of years old. They carry not just the genes, but the spirit of the giants before them. Their vision remains unmatched, their talons still instruments of precision. But even they face the same threats that ended their ancestors: climate, hunger, and humans. The story of the eagles is the story of adaptation and survival through change. Their reign continues, though the giants are gone, in a more fragile world. And each time one soars across a mountain peak, the past comes alive again. We see not just a bird, but the last echo of a dynasty that once ruled the skies. The age of the giant raptors may be over, but their legacy still rides the wind.
A young eagle chick screeches from a cliff nest while the parent lands, dropping fresh meat beside it. The colossal bird rides thermal currents, barely moving its wings while scanning for carrion.
Oh no, what is that?
2.5 million years ago, our ancestors lived in silence. No words, no sentences, no language as we know it. And yet, they survived. They built communities, raised children, found food, and avoided predators, all without speech. But how did they understand one another? This is the forgotten story of how early hominids communicated without words, laying the foundation for human language. Meet Australopithecus, small-bodied, long-armed ape-like faces, covered in dark hair, but walking upright. They lived in groups of a dozen or more. Togetherness was their greatest weapon against predators. Every sound mattered. A scream meant danger. A grunt meant food. Calls became their invisible web of survival. But sound alone was not enough. Gestures became critical. A raised hand stopped the group. A finger pointed the way. Facial expressions spoke even louder. A grimace warned of danger. A soft look signaled comfort. A playful smile invited trust. Their communication wasn't language, but it was enough to coordinate hunts, share food, and raise young. Think of it as a dance of sounds and movements, primitive signals that created order in the chaos of the wild. Life on the savannah was unforgiving. Lions, leopards, snakes, all deadly. Communication meant survival. At night, cries echoed across the dark. Groups huddled together, warning each other with every sound. They had no fire yet. Their only defense was numbers, and communication kept numbers strong. Grooming was more than hygiene. It was conversation through touch, trust built without words. A soft grunt during grooming said, "I trust you." A sudden flinch warned, "I don't." Every touch had meaning. Even infants learned the language of sound and motion. They copied adults, shaping the first traditions of communication. Then came Homo habilis, shorter, stockier, larger brains, and something new, stone tools. Tools demanded teaching, but teaching required more precise communication. Gestures grew more complex. One-hand motion could teach an entire process. Now, communication wasn't only about survival, it was about knowledge. And knowledge changed everything. Teaching, learning, planning. These were seeds of human culture. Without words, they still passed wisdom forward. Over generations, their calls gained rhythm. Repeated sounds meant repeated meanings. These were not words yet, but they were stepping stones. The first sparks of structured language. From cries of warning to calls of joy, communication was no longer just survival. It was identity. This was humanity's first great invention, language without words. From Australopithecus to Homo habilis, our ancestors built invisible bridges of meaning without a single spoken word. These signals, cries, and touches shaped survival. And survival shaped humanity. And next, the greatest leap, when sound became speech and words transformed the world.
2 million years ago, the East African savanna was a proving ground, a stage for nature's most brutal theater. Only the sharpest, the fastest, and the most ferocious survived. This was the world of Homo habilis, the handyman, short, stocky, and armed with a new secret weapon, the meticulously crafted stone tool. Their intelligence allowed them to compete with giants, but their presence was an intrusion, and in this world, every intrusion demands a lethal response. Today, we witness a conflict so pivotal, so fierce, it dictated the future of our lineage, a fight for dominance over the very ground they walked. Unseen, unheard, the savannah's true master had found them, a creature whose teeth were designed for one purpose, the quick, devastating kill. Get ready. This is the most dangerous fight ever seen in the ancient savannah. The H. habilis pack was scavenging a carcass left by a larger predator, a critical source of protein needed to fuel their massive brains. Their success attracted attention. The Dinofelis, often hunting in marginal territory, saw an easy target. Small, preoccupied, and far from the safety of the main tree line. The attack was instantaneous. A blur of muscle and fur, the cat targeted the nearest, weakest member, the strategy of every successful ambush predator. This was not a quick flight. Unlike their ancestors, H. habilis stood their ground, driven by the instinct of collective defense and the desire to save the fallen. The cat's weapon, the mighty saber tooth, was deadly. Designed to sever arteries with a single, massive bite, it was less effective in a grappling, chaotic fight. Their secret weapon, the stone tool, not a long-range weapon, but a terrifying close-quarters asset. Sharp enough to cut, tough enough to smash. This was a shock to the cat. It expected panic, not organized, screaming retaliation backed by a weapon that caused sudden, sharp injury. The pack quickly formed a loose semicircle, with the strongest male moving into the attack. Their goal: distract and draw the cat away from the injured. The male, the group's protector, lunged forward. He didn't seek to kill, but to injure, to make the price of the kill too high for the cat to pay. The conflict moved from ambush to a tense, violent standoff. The cat, trained only for the killing blow, hesitated against the coordinated aggression. The injured member, though bleeding heavily, was dragged to safety by two female group members, demonstrating an absolute commitment to saving all resources. The cat attempted a wide flanking maneuver, using its low, powerful center of gravity and speed to break the organized hominin circle. Their teamwork was critical. Every shout, every gesture was a signal, a coordination refined over generations of escaping less dangerous threats. This was not a fight of muscle against muscle, but of intelligence against instinct. The cat was powerful, but the hominins could plan and adapt. Another H. habilis individual, having secured the injured, returned to the fight armed with a thick, heavy branch, a blunt force weapon. The noise and the pain caused the cat to lose its focus. In that instant, the main male seized the opportunity for a counterattack. The wound was superficial, but the pain was immediate and sharp. The cat knew that an injured leg meant slow death in the wild. The balance of power shifted. The hunters were no longer just prey. They were a formidable force capable of inflicting damage on an apex predator. The Dinofelis, its hunting impulse momentarily overridden by the survival instinct, began to back away toward the dense brush. But the danger was not over. The cat might break and run, but the smell of blood lingered, attracting secondary, opportunistic predators. Jackals, sensing weakness, began to converge on the area, eager to pick off either the injured hominin or the retreating cat. The pack quickly decided. They had won the immediate battle, but they could not stay. Their primary focus returned to the survival of the group. The retrieval of the injured was crucial. They carefully loaded the wounded individual onto a makeshift stretcher of woven vines and branches. They left the prized carcass behind, a necessary sacrifice to ensure speed. The jackals and the retreating cat would fight over the spoils. This retreat was as strategic as the fight itself, using the dense, uneven terrain of the ravine to mask their scent and cover their trail. The fight had taught the habilis a lesson. The stone tool was not just for processing food. It was the ultimate equalizer against brute strength. This desperate confrontation was the first recorded use of simple technology to repel a dominant carnivore. Every member of the pack, male, female, young, and old, played a vital, non-negotiable role in the defense. The younger members threw stones from a distance, practicing skills they would need to survive as adults. The elderly were instrumental, providing calm, experience, and the knowledge of how to treat the deep wounds. The habilis mind, larger than any before it, processed the chaos in real time, turning the terrifying encounter into a tactical victory. They navigated the ravine, their bipedal gait allowing them to carry their wounded over obstacles that would halt a four-legged predator. The cat, unable to follow the scent trail effectively, quickly abandoned the chase, recognizing the intelligence of its new opponent. The injured individual was not abandoned. The sheer effort to carry him spoke volumes about their culture. Compassion was a survival trait. They knew that an individual's knowledge, where to find water, how to sharpen a tool, was too valuable to simply discard. The pack found a secure, high cave overlooking the valley. Here, they could rest, tend to the wounds, and process the immense physical and psychological cost of the battle. The wound was cleaned with rough leaves and bound with strips of animal hide, a rudimentary form of medicine guided by shared experience. The whole group entered a period of intense vigilance. The constant fear of the Dinofelis returning was countered by the flickering warmth and security of their mastered fire. Around the fire, the tension slowly eased. They used specific gestures and calls to recount the events, cementing the lessons learned into the collective memory. The core lesson was simple: alone they were prey. Together, armed with stone and cunning, they were untouchable. The incident immediately changed their behavior. Future scavenging trips were larger, faster, and always included individuals designated solely as lookouts and armed guards. They began to select stones not just for cutting, but for their weight and shape for throwing, the earliest form of projectile weapon selection. This single, dangerous fight was a turning point in evolution. It demonstrated that hominin survival would no longer be determined by physical power or natural camouflage, but by technological adaptation and social cooperation. The savanna's balance of power had shifted permanently. The great cats still ruled through terror, but they had learned to respect the small, tool-wielding creatures that refused to run. The cost of attacking a Homo habilis pack had become too high. From this day forward, the scent of Homo habilis meant not just food, but the sharp pain of rock and the confusing terror of coordinated defense. They had redefined their place in the ecosystem from scavengers and prey to competitors and guardians. They carried the memory of the fight, the fear, the blood, and the victory as a badge of honor. The injured individual, thanks to the pack's unwavering care, would survive, further validating their compassionate strategy. His survival would serve as a living symbol of the power of unity and the strength of the Homo habilis way. They had proven the utility of their intelligence under the most extreme pressure imaginable. The next evolutionary chapter was not about growing larger teeth, but about making better tools, communicating complex strategies, and building a community strong enough to face down a saber-toothed cat. This confrontation was more than just a fight. It was the moment our ancestors declared that they would control their own fate, not simply submit to the laws of the wild. The legacy of that dangerous day still echoes today, residing in our ability to innovate, cooperate, and care for one another. It was the moment the handyman became the guardian of the savannah.
running! Get away from them! What is that? Look!
Millions of years ago, Earth was home to creatures both majestic and terrifying.
Ow!
Vast plains, roaring winds, and predators lurking in every shadow. This was the age when survival meant constant vigilance. Early humans, small, fragile, yet fiercely determined, walked among giants. The savannas echoed with the cries of life and death. The dawn painted long shadows across lands ruled by fangs and claws. Every sunrise was a test, every night a trial. These were the first warriors of the human story. Without weapons of iron, they faced predators beyond imagination. But in their eyes burned a light stronger than fear, instinct and hope. The saber-toothed cat, Smilodon, muscular, silent, with fangs like daggers, it waited in tall grass, eyes fixed on the weak and the unaware. One leap meant death. Its roar silenced all other sounds. The early humans learned to sense danger long before it came. They moved in groups, watched the skies, and studied every sign. A broken twig, a rustling bush, it could mean life or death. The giant hyena, Pachyrhacota, was the scavenger king. With jars that could crush bones, it followed humans for scraps. But sometimes, scraps weren't enough. It hunted them instead. Fires became their fortress, light their only weapon. Night after night, they guarded the flames as beasts circled beyond. The fire's crackle became the sound of safety, but not all predators feared it. The taro bird, Homoerectus, stood taller than a man. Its beak could tear flesh like fabric, its stride faster than any human. It stalked the open plains of South America. One scream from the beast sent tribes scattering for cover. But even this monster could be outwitted. The humans learned to lure it away, then strike as one. Bravery became their greatest weapon. Across oceans, in the wilds of Australia, another terror ruled. Megalania, the giant lizard, moved with cold precision. Venomous, armored, and patient. Its ambushes were sudden, swift death from stillness. Early humans learned to read the land, to see what others missed. They tracked footprints, smelled danger in the air. Their instincts sharpened with every generation. The world itself was their teacher. And then the great cats, the ancient lions, roamed the plains. Apex predators that hunted in coordinated packs. A single misstep meant extinction. But humanity evolved through struggle. From fear came courage. From danger came wisdom. The tribes began to craft weapons from stone. Each strike of flint was a revolution. Spears turned prey into predator. The balance of power began to shift. They no longer ran from beasts, they faced them. Fire and tools became symbols of a rising species. Nights grew shorter, courage stronger. The world began to recognize a new kind of hunter. Their minds outpaced muscle. They learned to trap, to deceive, to endure. The saber-toothed cat that once ruled now faced danger of its own. Its prey fought back with fire and teamwork. The age of human dominance had begun. Still, danger never vanished, it only changed shape. Storms, droughts, and predators tested them endlessly. But they adapted, survived, and remembered. Stories of beasts became legends told around the fire. Children grew up hearing roars of creatures they'd never see. The terror bird faded, the giant hyena disappeared. The world changed, but humans remained. Evolution favored those who learned fastest. Every scar told a story of survival. Every victory was carved into memory. With each generation, fear turned into knowledge, and knowledge turned into power. Fire, tools, unity, the great trinity of survival. They learned from the land and from every beast they faced. The wind whispered lessons through the trees. Tracks in the mud told stories of life and death. Each footprint a clue for the ones who dared to follow. Human eyes grew sharper, minds faster. They began to think like predators, not prey. Their world was painted in blood and fire, yet filled with wonder. Children learned early how to listen to silence. A single chirp missing from the forest meant danger. A sudden stillness meant death was near. They learned to mimic animal calls to confuse their enemies. Traps made of vines and rocks became silent killers. No longer did they flee, they began to plan. Even the mightiest predators grew cautious. The balance of fear began to change. Smilodon's reign over the plains started to crumble. A single spear in the right hands could pierce its heart. The giant hyena avoided camps that glowed with firelight. Megalania's ambushes became fewer. Humans turned the night into their domain. Fires spread across valleys like constellations on Earth. Predators looked from afar, uncertain, wary. It was no longer a world that belonged only to beasts. The dawn of intelligence had begun. Hands once used for climbing now built shelters. Sticks became spears,
Rocks became blades. Each tool told a story of defiance. The terror birds that once hunted them were now hunted. Humans used teamwork, one distraction, one strike. Even the most terrifying predator could fall to unity. This was evolution in motion. Every hunt made them wiser. Every escape made them stronger. Fear became strategy. Instinct became innovation. Generations passed, new tribes, new lands, same struggle. But survival had a new face. The forests of Africa, the plains of Asia, the cliffs of Europe. Everywhere they went, the pattern repeated. Predator and prey locked in eternal dance. The difference now was willpower. Humans had imagination. They could see a future, plan a tomorrow. That thought alone changed the fate of the world. No beast could dream, no beast could invent. And that was humanity's greatest advantage. The first fires turned to hearths, the first shelters to villages. Weapons grew sharper, minds grew deeper. But still they told stories of the beasts. Tales of roaring cats, birds with blade-like beaks. Legends that warn children never to forget. The world once belonged to monsters, but those monsters taught humanity how to survive. Every threat was a teacher, every loss a lesson. They learned compassion through danger, unity through fear. The predators shaped their courage, and courage shaped civilization. When the last Smilodon fell, the forests grew quiet. When Megalania vanished, the silence was eerie. But the echoes of their power lived on. Even now in the human heart, that primal fear beats. It's the memory of a time when we were not on top, when eyes in the dark meant the end, when survival was not a choice, but a constant test. Those ancient days live in us still. Every time we face fear, we carry that legacy. The courage of the first humans, the strength of survivors. And though the beasts are gone, their shadows remain. Carved into fossils, whispered in our DNA. We are children of the wild, shaped by predators and fire. Born from struggle, raised by the earth itself. The age of giants ended, but the story continued. From the ashes of fear rose intelligence. From prey we became rulers. And yet the balance remains, for nature never forgets its own power. Every roar of thunder, every rustle in the night, a reminder of what once hunted us, and what we became because of it. This was life millions of years ago, a world of chaos, courage, and creation. A time when giants ruled and humans learned to rise. The story of survival, written not in ink, but in blood and stone. A story that never ends, only evolves.
trophies of survival. Scarred warriors sharpened flakes, preparing for the next inevitable battle. Sparks glowing against the walls. Scratch marks appeared, symbols of thirst. Aught
The war of the first toolmakers would echo through eternity.
What if the very first steps toward human dominance weren't about bigger brains, but sharper sticks? Imagine a world 2.5 million years ago, where survival hinged not on muscle, but on the spark of innovation. This is the story of Homo habilis, the handyman, the earliest known innovator in our human story. The world of Homo habilis was raw, unforgiving, and perilous. Every day was a gamble between life and death. Yet amidst the chaos, something extraordinary began: the rise of intelligence. For the first time, a species began shaping the world not by strength, but by design. With deliberate strikes, Homo habilis crafted sharp-edged tools from stone, forming the Oldowan toolkit. These were no accidents of nature. Each edge carried intention, each flake a purpose. The Oldowan tools were humanity's first blueprint for innovation, simple yet revolutionary. To create a tool meant more than instinct. It required foresight, the ability to see not what is, but what could be. This marked a cognitive leap no other primate had achieved. Contrary to myth, they weren't apex hunters. They were scavengers, resourceful survivors who turned leftovers into lifelines. With stone tools, they could crack bones, extracting nutrient-rich marrow no predator could reach. This new diet, rich in fats and proteins, fueled something profound. The brain began to grow, powered by calories once locked inside bones. Life was never secure. Rival bands fought for carcasses. Predators lurked in every shadow. In this crucible of fear and competition, Homo habilis adapted, not through size, but through strategy. Perhaps it was here, among sharpened stones and survival instincts, that the idea of a weapon was born. A branch honed to a point, a tool that could also defend. With a sharpened stick, Homo habilis stepped beyond scavenging. Now they could deter predators or even bring down smaller prey. It was a subtle yet monumental shift in survival strategy. The true genius of Homo habilis wasn't in the tool itself, but in the ability to teach. Skills passed through demonstration, a primitive form of knowledge sharing that would define humanity forever.
Today,
as darkness fell over the savannah, they huddled close, small sparks of thought in a vast, untamed world. Every tool, every lesson was a step away from extinction and a step toward civilization. In the beginning, Homo habilis shaped stones, but in truth, they were shaping destiny. The dawn of tool-making had begun, and soon the spear would follow. From stone came inspiration, and from inspiration, a weapon. For the first time, Homo habilis began to shape the world not just for survival, but for control. Though the evidence remains uncertain, signs suggest the possibility of crude wooden spears, the earliest known attempt to extend human reach and redefine power. For the first time in history, the hunted could stand their ground. A pointed stick turned fear into defiance, a boundary between prey and predator. With each experiment, confidence grew. From scavengers, they became opportunistic hunters. It was no longer just about surviving. It was about shaping outcomes. Survival demanded unity. Hunting, defending, and crafting became shared acts, small sparks of social order emerging in a chaotic world. They had no language as we know it, yet meaning flowed between them through gesture, rhythm, and gaze. These early signals were the roots of connection. In the patient act of teaching, a greater intelligence took shape, one that could outlive any single generation. Homo habilis didn't just make tools, they made teachers. The bonds of blood evolved into bonds of tribe. Trust, sharing, and care began to replace isolation. With every act of cooperation, humanity drew closer to what it would one day become. Nature tested them endlessly. Storms, predators, hunger. Yet each challenge forged resilience. They adapted, endured, and persisted. They could not yet command fire, but they recognized its power. In those flickering flames lay the promise of mastery still generations away. As the world changed, so did they. Through droughts and abundance, through danger and discovery, their ingenuity became their greatest shield. With time, tool-making became identity. Each tribe, each valley, carried its own techniques, the birth of diversity in human thought. From these humble beginnings emerged all who followed, the inventors, explorers, and dreamers, each carrying the spark first lit by the handyman. Every invention, every breakthrough, traces back to this moment in time, the day a small hand struck stone and shaped the future. The story of Homo habilis is not just one of survival, it is the story of us, the first thinkers, the first teachers, the first dreamers who dared to change their world. From the first edge of stone to the reach of the spear, humanity began its eternal pursuit, not just to live, but to evolve.
$1.9 million years ago, in the heart of ancient Africa, water meant life, but also death. For Homo habilis, the first true tool makers, rivers were both a blessing and a battlefield. They weren't alone here. Crocodiles waded beneath the surface, and rival tribes watched from the shadows. The dry season had dragged on for months. Every creature, predator and prey, was drawn to the same precious water. For Homo habilis, survival depended on timing. Approach too early, and you risk a crocodile's strike. Too late, and the rival tribe would have already taken control of the bank. These weren't wars of strategy, just desperate scrambles for access to drink, to wash, and to live. With limited food, conflict was inevitable. Water meant safety and meat. They hunted small animals, scavenged lion kills, and cracked bones with stones for rich marrow. But each trip to the river was a gamble. Crocodiles were silent, ancient killers. One careless moment, and the water exploded with violence. Screams echoed across the bank. The survivors fled, leaving behind both friend and fear. Rival Homo habilis bands, hungry, territorial, and armed. When groups met at the same river, violence often followed. There were no words yet, only gestures, grunts, and raw aggression. But conflict bred innovation. To defend their own, Homo habilis shaped better tools. The Oldowan toolkit, simple yet revolutionary. It turned scavengers into survivors. With tools came courage. With courage came risk. This time, they would not be ambushed. As the rival group returned, both sides prepared for the inevitable. Stone met flesh, blood mixed with river water. When it ended, the survivors limped away, victorious but scarred. For Homo habilis, every victory was temporary. Tomorrow, thirst would return. These brutal encounters shaped something deeper, the need for cooperation. Through danger, bonds strengthened. Through fear, intelligence grew. Homo habilis learned that unity could overcome even crocodiles. The brain expanded, memory deepened, and planning began. Each challenge by the river was a test and an evolutionary leap. The river that took lives also shaped the human spirit. In fear and bloodshed, Homo habilis discovered courage, teamwork, and foresight. And from these humble survivors would emerge a new species, one that would master fire. This is how humanity began, ambushed at the river, but never defeated.
Water.
Watch for movement.
Three million years ago,
a pivotal time on Earth. The African landscape was a canvas of life and constant peril. Here, a creature walked upright, yet still clung to its ancient arboreal roots. This was Australopithecus, a distant ancestor, navigating a world where every rustle in the grass, every shadow, could mean the difference between life and oblivion. But the familiar canopy was shrinking, forcing them into new, open territories. With new lands came new, terrifying dangers, testing their very blueprint for survival. For generations, the trees were their sanctuary. They offered safety from ground predators and a rich bounty of fruits. Life was challenging, but relatively predictable. Yet, drastic climate shifts were transforming their world. Drier conditions meant forests gave way to expanding savannas, pushing them out of their leafy fortresses. This forced migration brought them face to face with apex predators of the open plains, creatures far more formidable than anything they encountered in the dense woods. One of the most terrifying new threats was Dinofelis, the terrible cat. Its powerful bite and immense strength made it an efficient hunter of anything its size or smaller. While Australopithecus was bipedal, they weren't built for sustained speed. Their upright stance, though freeing their hands, offered little advantage in an outright chase. Survival now depended on heightened awareness, group cohesion, and a constant search for any available cover. A rock pile, a ravine, or a sturdy, defensible tree. Beyond the terrible cat, another giant lurked, Homoerectus, the scimitar-toothed cat, whose powerful forelimbs allowed it to bring down massive prey. These predators weren't just hunting for sustenance. They were defending territories. Any hominin wandering too close became an immediate threat to be eliminated. To survive, Australopithecus adapted. They developed sharper senses, a deeper understanding of animal behavior, and a reliance on complex alarm calls to warn the group. They learned to read the signs. The flight of birds, the sudden silence of insects, the nervous movements of grazing animals. These were their life-saving radar systems. Adding to the daily stress were rival hominin groups. While often non-lethal, these encounters led to territorial disputes and competition for scarce resources like food and shelter. Water holes, essential for survival in the dry season, were often the most dangerous places. Predators knew this, turning these vital spots into natural ambush zones. The sheer unpredictability of the environment itself was a threat. Sudden droughts, flash floods, or even distant volcanic ash could wipe out entire food sources. Scavenging for meat became a necessary, risky venture. It meant competing directly with formidable scavengers like large hyenas, jackals, and giant vultures. The dangers weren't always from massive beasts. Venomous snakes and scorpions, easily hidden in the tall grass or rocky crevices, posed a constant, silent threat. Despite their upright posture, Australopithecus retained excellent climbing abilities. Trees, though scarcer, still offered a crucial, last-resort escape route when danger was imminent. Nights were perhaps the most perilous. Without fire, they relied on collective vigilance, the safety of high branches, and the cover of darkness, but fear was a constant companion. This era of intense pressure was a crucible of evolution. Only the most adaptable, the most vigilant, and those with the strongest social bonds would survive. The constant threat also likely spurred the development of their cognitive abilities, requiring complex planning, memory, and the ability to assess ambiguous situations. Every broken bone, every narrowly escaped ambush, every lost member of the group imprinted harsh lessons onto the collective memory of the Australopithecus. Their diet diversified. While still relying heavily on plants, the opportunity for scavenged meat, though dangerous, provided vital protein for their developing brains and bodies. This period saw them evolving subtle behavioral shifts. They learned to avoid open ground during peak hunting times, like dawn and dusk, favoring the middle of the day. Their small size, while a disadvantage against massive predators, also allowed them to exploit niches larger animals couldn't, like gathering tubers or small ground-dwelling creatures. The shift to bipedalism meant their hands were free, paving the way for rudimentary tool use. A sharp rock wasn't just a weapon. It was a means to unlock new calorie sources. It was a daily struggle, a relentless test of endurance against a world that was beautiful, abundant, and utterly unforgiving. Survival was a moment-to-moment endeavor. Every dawn brought the promise of a new day, but also the renewed certainty of facing dangers that constantly sought to end their lineage. They could never truly rest. The strength of their family bonds, their group intelligence, and their growing adaptability were the only weapons they truly possessed against the brutal realities of their world. This era of heightened danger sculpted them, refining their senses and instincts, slowly preparing them for the next great evolutionary leap. They were not just surviving. They were slowly, incrementally, pushing the boundaries of what it meant to be a hominin in a rapidly changing world. The very struggles they faced became the forge in which their future, and ours, would be hammered out, one dangerous, defining day at a time. And through it all, they learned to collaborate, to communicate in more complex ways, and to see the world not just as a blanket threat, but as a series of problems to overcome. The lessons of the savannah, etched into their very being, would lay the groundwork for a new chapter in hominin history, a chapter defined by the power of tools. These weren't simply creatures reacting to their environment. They were active agents, shaping their own destiny through adaptation and resourcefulness. From these perilous beginnings, something profound was beginning to emerge, the seeds of true human adaptability and complex societal structure. The pressure of new dangers didn't break them. It made them stronger, smarter, and demanded an even tighter social network for defense and survival. The open plains, initially a source of terror, slowly became a classroom where new survival strategies were learned and perfected through trial and error. Their movements became more efficient, their observation skills sharper, their calls more nuanced, driven by the ever-present, primal need to survive and protect their young. This continuous threat and adaptation process was a dance of life and death, shaping the very definition of what it meant to be an early hominin. The harsh realities of the prehistoric savanna demanded constant innovation, even if it was as simple as finding the safest sleeping spot each night or the fastest route to water. And so, through millions of years, the Australopithecus persevered, their journey marked by courage, fear, and an unwavering will to continue their lineage. Their lives were a testament to the power of evolution, a slow, relentless refinement of traits that ensured their survival against overwhelming odds. They were the masters of their niche, adapting their ancient primate heritage to the demands of the emerging grassland. Every new danger, from the leopard-like cats to the territorial hyenas, served to select for the most alert, the most coordinated, and the most inventive individuals. This pressure cooker environment was creating an animal that was becoming something more, a creature on the very edge of true technological invention. The key to their success was never brute strength. It was the power of their community and the growing complexity of their minds. They carried the fate of all future hominins on their small, bipedal shoulders, navigating the chaotic shift from deep forest to open plains. For nearly 2 million years, they would hold their ground, facing down the greatest predators the Pliocene and early Pleistocene had to offer. But the story of Australopithecus is ultimately a stepping stone, a foundation of courage and cleverness upon which a new species would soon rise. The savanna had taught them to walk tall and think fast. Soon, their descendants would learn to shape the very world around them. The stage was being set for the next revolutionary chapter, a new hominin that would use its hands to truly conquer the wild. Join us next time as we explore the rise of Homo habilis, the handyman, and how they took the fundamental lessons of Australopithecus and used them to create the first true stone tools. The dry season was perhaps the ultimate test. Water became scarce, forcing groups to take even greater risks by traveling further and closer to predator lairs. Rivers and streams often dried up, leaving only scattered, isolated pools. These isolated pools were death traps, where hominins and predators were forced to congregate. They learned to recognize the signs of buried water, certain types of vegetation, or the presence of specific insects, using this knowledge to dig shallow wells. Another immense predator was the massive Chasmoporthetes, a giant, swift-running hyena, capable of outrunning and overpowering an isolated Australopithecus. Against such speed and power, the only defense was early warning and the swift use of group defense tactics. a strategy known as mobbing. Mobbing was a risky but necessary gambit. By cooperating and creating a loud, aggressive front, they could sometimes deter a single predator from attacking. The threat wasn't always a direct attack. Injuries, even small ones, could quickly become fatal due to infection, lack of medicine, and the inability to keep pace with the group. This necessitated a strong focus on collective care. The sick or injured relied entirely on the generosity of their healthy group members for food and protection. The very act of staying together, of forming strong, trusting social units, was perhaps the most crucial adaptation of Australopithecus on the exposed plains. Female Australopithecus faced a unique danger, protecting their slower, less mobile infants while foraging, a challenge amplified by the lack of hiding places. This pressure likely drove the hominins to forage in smaller, faster bursts, always keeping an eye on the nearest potential escape route, such as a rock pile or a ravine. They developed an intimate knowledge of their local topography. Every cave, every sheltered copse, and every elevated ridge that offered a commanding view. The open nature of the savanna meant they were often exposed to the burning sun. They learned to seek shade during the hottest parts of the day, conserving precious energy. They became masters of opportunistic foraging, finding and utilizing resources that larger, more specialized herbivores ignored. Their ability to switch from high canopy dwelling to ground-based scavenging and foraging was a triumph of evolutionary versatility. Yet, the greatest threat often came not from the great cats, but from the massive territorial herbivores, like the ancient rhinoceros or the enormous, unpredictable elephants. These beasts could crush them instantly. Australopithecus learned to read their moods, to know when to hide, when to retreat, and when they could cautiously pass. The evolution of bipedalism, the defining trait of their lineage, was essential for survival in this open, dangerous world. It allowed them to see over the tall grasses, spot distant predators or potential food sources, giving them a vital few seconds of warning. This increased height, combined with their sharp vision, was their first line of defense against the unseen dangers lurking in the vastness. The constant stress of these new dangers forged deeper bonds between the older and younger generations, cementing a culture of learning and knowledge transfer. The young had to learn quickly. Their childhood was a high-stakes education in botany, animal behavior, and the critical importance of group loyalty. Geological forces also continued to reshape their habitat. Rift valleys widened, creating new barriers but also exposing new rock formations perfect for shelter. The transition from dense forest to patchy woodland was a million-year-long test, demanding flexibility in diet and a refusal to specialize too much. They were not yet masters of fire or complex tools, but they were masters of their wits, using their environment with intelligent improvisation. Every day was a successful negotiation with death. The sheer persistence of Australopithecus is one of the most remarkable stories in human evolution.
2 million years ago, before words, before fire, fear itself ruled the earth. They were not alone. Something vast moved within the clouds. When the wind stopped breathing, the sky began to scream.
That night, the heavens fell, and the first humans learned that survival was not a right, but a we.
Fear rippled through the tribe like fire through dry grass.
From the churning mud, another horror awakened, forged by...
In that chaos, survival became instinct, and instinct became invention. Not of nature, but of will.
For the first time, the hunted struck back.
Night returned, silent, except for the sound of something new. Hope.
They had fought the dark and lived.
When the beasts fled, a greater power awoke, the will to learn.
Fire became memory, and memory became language. With rhythm came planning, and with planning, the birth of strategy. But the wild was listening, and it learned too.
Night fell again, and with it came hunters that feared no flame.
Their answer was not strength, it was unity.
In that rhythm, fear turned into power. In that rhythm, fear turned into power.
The predators fled, and silence bowed to the sound of thought. From survival came creation, stone, edge, and purpose.
With tools, they shaped the future, and the wild began to fear them.
But some nightmares refused to fade. They met the dark again, and this time they fought as one.
Courage was no longer an accident, it was their weapon. As the beast fell, a new species rose.
From fear came thought, from thought, destiny. The sun rose over a new world, one shaped by fire, by courage. They had mastered flame. Now they sought mastery over life itself. But every step toward power draws the gaze of something stronger. The hunter had become the hunted once more.
In the chaos, instinct chose a leader.
He commanded not by fear, but by fury.
In those heartbeats, something changed. Prey learned to plan. The first true hunt had begun. With unity came victory. But nature's greatest test was yet to come, an enemy that shared their fire. For the first time, man faced his own reflection. They would not fight for land or fire, but for the right to be called human. In the clash of survival, evolution chose its heirs. When the storm cleared, only one tribe remained standing. And from that dawn, the world would never be wild again. And from that dawn, the world would never be wild again. The night no longer belonged to monsters. It belonged to the flame. Fire gave them warmth, but it also gave them time to think. They learned to carry the flame, to bring light wherever darkness waited. They followed thunder, not to flee, but to find.
The world beyond the valley would forge their next form. In every flame they carried, the memory of fear still burned.
Curiosity became their compass. Wonder became their strength. From these moments came the first dream, the vision of tomorrow.
2 million years ago, they began a journey that would never end. From trembling prey to the architects of fire. The beasts are gone, but when courage was born from fear,